Welcome back, brother.
Welcome, 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 my dear. Welcome to all our beautiful listeners and watchers. I'm not sure how many are watching. Are you watching or listening to podcasts?
So, most of the podcasts that I listen to on Spotify. And because Spotify allows you to embed video now, like sometimes I'm just listening, but sometimes I'm also watching. It really just depends upon like Know Thyself is one of the podcasts that I love, and he
Yeah.
always embeds the same video he puts onto YouTube just like we do
Yeah.
for Spotify. And so those that are listening, if you're listening on Spotify, you're obviously watching this as well. If you're just watching on YouTube, but if you're listening through Apple Podcasts, well, sorry, you're just hearing the podcast, and maybe that's a little push towards moving over to Spotify.
Yeah, I start to select. This is really weird because I really enjoy watching podcasts. Before it was just the listening medium, right? To listen to people having conversations. That's the whole idea of podcasts. But since they introduced video, and like there's more connection because there are more stimuli than just the sound, right? So the visual stimuli, and we can connect better and deeper with people when we have more information of them, right?
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
start to select podcasts like, oh, there's no video. Oh, damn. Which is actually one of my teachers that I really admire, which is Rupert Spira, as you know. And he has a podcast, a really good podcast, where they have like excerpts of his live teachings, and there's no video. I was like, yeah, that's the thing. We're living in times of full access to everything and having so much more profound freedom to choose through
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it also, you touching on the idea of like being able to not just hear somebody, but also see somebody creates this like deeper sense of connection.
Mm.
And I think that's something that we sometimes like undervalue in this day and age of like social media connection of like,
Mm.
I can see you and I can hear you,
Yeah,
but our connection is that much more deepened when we're in person together, and my
100%.
nervous system can actually feel you. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing you, I'm seeing you, but I'm also feeling you. And it's this like idea, and there's a direction that I'm trying to take this, because the more senses you can bring online, the
Mm.
deeper it makes any experience. And this can be true for a meditation or a
Mm.
visualization or a
Mm.
personal practice, that if you are combining as many of the senses as you possibly can, the deeper and deeper
Mm.
you're going to go into that experience, because the more information you have at your
Right.
disposal. Somatic made a post, I think it was yesterday, where it was talking about this idea: when you focus on your healing journey, you're actually putting more pressure on yourself that there's something that needs to be fixed or there's something that's broken.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Whereas true healing happens through connection,
Mm.
through this
Mm.
connecting all the parts of ourself, connecting our mind to our body, to our heart, to our spirit, soul,
Mm.
whatever name you
Mm.
want to call it. Like, the deeper you can make these connections with yourself, all of a sudden, the deeper the connections you can make with another person.
Yeah.
And so this inherent idea of like connection through senses, connection through information, connection through depth of experience and depth of
Mm.
connection, I think is something that's like really, really undervalued in
Mm.
our current societal paradigm.
Yeah. I would love to go a bit deeper into that
Yeah, let's
if
go.
you like, because when you were saying that, um, like what came up for me was like I totally agree, and you know that I also had this challenge. I still have with social media. I'm not really active on social media on Instagram as I was, because there was this lack of connection that I felt, and the deeper I work with myself, also of course to reconnect and to go deeper, and doing the work that I'm doing with breath work, and also using the space where I'm hosting sessions for the participants to reconnect with themselves, but also for me to have this connection with my clients and with my participants in the which is, as you said, much more profounder because there's more information, and I totally resonate with that. The more information there is, the deeper our body can somehow connect and also create an attunement, can create connection. But there's one thing that I'm just wrapping my head around, and that is, you mentioned meditation. Because when we go into meditation, and I know that you are a very experienced meditator, isn't it that you try to actually drop more and more information? You try to get out of the senses. I mean, that's the whole idea of the yogic path. Yeah, that's like the term also from withdrawing of the senses. Yeah, pratyahara. So you're withdrawing of the senses. You're just trying to really focus on one point, and then even that one point focus dissolves. Then, and if that dissolves, then you are in this pure beingness, right? So that's interesting. And samadhi is actually the highest form of connection, right? So there's a difference between, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So for me, I see like a difference between the body, the somatic intelligence, yeah, which is shaped by evolution with senses to observe the environment, to scan the environment. And so if I want to be in connection with you, I can only be in connection with you when I feel that you are safe for me.
Mhm.
And therefore I need as much information as I can get. And then I can connect if I feel safe. If I don't feel safe, then actually disconnection happens, right? I don't see you as a friend, as an ally. I see you as a threat. So what are your thoughts on that?
So there's a couple different avenues I want to go in of what
Mm,
you just said, because I feel like you opened up two doorways. The first doorway is speaking on meditation practice. So I want to go
mm,
through that door first. For the longest time, I was following meditation just as you were describing it, trying
mm,
to remove and withdraw from my senses as much as possible, shutting
mm,
off the monkey mind,
mm,
really trying to focus on singular sensation of like feeling the sensation of the breath entering my nostril, moving down into my
mm,
lungs, then coming back out again and
mm,
getting connected to just this singular pathway.
mm,
But my practice over the last couple of months has really shifted. And
mm,
it shifted partly on that hike that I did because I
mm,
couldn't maintain my normal practice. You know,
mm,
we're constantly moving. There's not a lot of time in the morning unless I get up really, really early, but my body wanted as much sleep as possible. So I just started this practice of like waking up and just being aware.
mm,
What can I see? What can I
mm,
hear? What can
mm,
I
mm.
sense? And this has been my practice in the mornings now where I'll sit out on our porch that's all screened in. So I'm kind of like protected from like the bugs and everything. And I've got the cats and our dog out there and we just hang out and we just watch and listen.
Mm, mm, mm,
Again, what can I see? What can I hear? What can I sense?
mm,
And it's through that expansion of sensing more and more and more and more
mm.
that it's kind of like this idea that Alan Watts has described as like, you know, when you look at a rug and you see the beauty of it, but then you flip it
Yeah.
over and you see the chaos that's on the back of like all these different threads crisscrossing each other. And then you zoom it
Mm,
in again, say with like a microscope. And then all of a sudden you see the perfection at how all of the fibers interweave with one another to create each
mm,
individual thread. You zoom it further
mm.
forward, you see all the chaos of all the overlapping fibers that are creating the individual fibers that are
Yeah.
creating the thread. And so, like,
Mm,
there's this idea that you can zoom out so
mm,
far that you actually are zooming in further, if that makes sense.
mm,
So it's like almost as if taking in more and more and more and more and more information allows me to slowly go beyond that
mm.
information.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's almost like the opposite path of trying to quiet everything down as much as possible so you can come to the root of things versus allowing things to
Mm,
get as loud as possible so you can come to the root of things.
mm. That's beautiful. Yeah, both extreme ways like to actually go to the same point, which again creates a circle, right? So there are different approaches to get to the same point. I love that, and I was giggling when you were saying that with your morning practice. Since almost a year, I'm practicing the direct path and the non-duality path. which actually also goes into just being in the moment and not necessarily having a practice, not necessarily having like this, okay, I'm preparing for my meditation, I'm sitting in the posture, I having, as we described, like focusing on my breath or on a mantra, or there was one point focus and then drop in, but just in each moment, just to connect with the isness and the beingness, which is the name, like this is why it's called the direct path. Like you don't need some practice or some prompt or something that brings you into it. You just be it in each moment because you are it. And I love it because what you described with this just opening all the senses and taking as much information as possible actually quiets the mind too, because the mind is highly active if you are focused, like if you use a sense to narrow the information down. As I said, the next story where we will go in with evolution and the body, like you're focusing in and then you're just extracting this information, then your mind is very active. But as soon as you just open up and just passively let the information in, it's like a white noise that is coming, right? It's like, I mean, I am aware of the sound of the birds. I hear the wind. I smell the roses in the garden, and all of that is just like this richness of sensations that are coming in, and but they're all like, this is my experience, like they are melting together, and then it becomes like um this expansion, as you said. Yeah, beautiful. You said like this huge expansion. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it's interesting.
What you just said is like they melt together, and
Mm,
it's in that melting that you fall into the oneness of everything.
right.
And like that is, in my opinion, that is the whole point of meditation. It's getting back to oneness. It's getting back to unity. It's getting back to where you are everything and nothing all at the same time.
Mm,
And it's perfect in that. One of the things that I love that you pointed out, and I know your practices kind of shifted
mm,
similarly to mine, of where it's like practice for a long time was about achieving perfection. It was about doing
mm,
everything right.
mm,
Whereas like my practice now is about progress, not perfection.
that's
It,
beautiful.
it
Yeah.
it's about
Progress.
like some mornings one of my cats will jump on my lap, and then how can I be in the beauty of that experience and not trying to rush it and not picking up my phone and getting distracted, but just like being with this other being that wants to be with me in this moment.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
maybe she sees a squirrel and jumps off of my lap, and like, okay, can we be with that squirrel now? Because that's where our attention has gotten taken to. Like yesterday I watched a tiny little vole, which is like, if you're familiar with the vole, it's like slightly bigger than a mouse, but has a little bit shorter tail. And I was just watching it cruise around through the moss and the leaves for like 15 minutes
Yeah.
of just being witness to this thing on its normal routines and activities. And it's probably not even aware that I'm there,
Yeah.
but
That's
I'm aware
powerful.
that it's there. And so through that awareness is my awareness of it now creating an awareness of it sensing me too.
Yeah.
And the more that we can
Oh,
kind of get drawn into that, right? Are we
yeah.
actually separate?
Yeah.
Or is that being just another aspect of me that's just living a different life in a different
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, now you're kicking something very, very interesting. I love that this is my observation, like my witnessing, my consciousness witnessing something creates this connection of being it simultaneously. Like it senses you too, because it is you, it is it. And I have a very similar experience today when I was walking with my dog. I was like, "Oh wow, this is interesting," because I had the same thought. I was walking with my dog and I was just looking. I just observed and watching him in front of me on the leash, and I was totally in it. I was completely in his movement and just absorbing this being with my senses, with my awareness. And it was so hard then to distinguish what is me and what is him, because it became like part of myself.
you unified.
Exactly. And this unification also created a very, very strong sensation of attunement, melting, as we said, like it melts. And then I was thinking about like, is that witnessing, that observing through my consciousness creates the same experience then also for my dog. And then I was like going like, what is my dog actually experiencing? And what is consciousness? Like I am like my dog, as we both are dog lovers and have dogs and also cats. Even each being that is observing its environment with their senses are having a representation internally of the environment, right? There are senses, the information is coming in, so they are creating some kind of environment. So as we are experiencing our world through our senses, but we are experiencing it through this primate monkey body, and the dog is experiencing it through the dog's body, how evolution shaped it according to adaptation and survival. And so the interesting thing is now we are awake. Like we have this experience of I am witnessing myself being awake, being aware. I am aware of being aware, which we couldn't really. I mean, there are some species that are exactly at the threshold where we are really not sure if they have like a awareness of being aware, and it's despite from primates. There also, I think, the birds are going in a very very narrow field of that. I think these are like evolutionary the next ones who are becoming like also aware of being aware. But that is just one aspect of consciousness. And I was thinking like my dog is still conscious and he's still there. He's in that moment, in this deep, like what we are explaining through expansion and this unity. My question, like maybe that my dog is already there, you know? Maybe that was life is actually the default state is actually being in this unity of pure beingness. And we are, from that sense, thrown into almost a jail, like thrown into a cave where we can't escape because we are just boggling with our mind.
Yeah.
So that is
See,
interesting.
this is why I love animals so much and why
Mm,
I love nature. Because you said that like through when you're walking with your dog, like through your awareness of your dog, it creates this space for
mm,
this like joint awareness. And this is a time where I'm going to slightly disagree with you because in that verbiage inherently it means that we are creating the space, but I believe that animals are always creating the invitation for us to be in the moment just like they are.
mm.
They're not thinking about 5 minutes from now. They're not thinking about
Yeah,
tomorrow. They're not
yeah.
thinking about yesterday. They're only thinking about what's happening right now.
Right,
I'm
right.
walking down the road, squirrel. I'm
Yeah,
walking down the road, bird. I'm
yeah,
walking down the road, I smell something, right? Right? Like they're so hyper now
exactly.
that they're constantly giving us that invitation to be in the now with them.
Yeah, yeah,
Because for them, it's their baseline. It's their natural way of being
yeah, yeah.
because they don't have the same at least as far as we're aware,
Mm, mm.
most of us can't communicate with animals, so we don't really know for certain. But I think it's safe to say that they don't have the same thought processes and worries and stresses that we
Absolutely.
do because they're just thinking about now. They're just thinking about the moment. Like right now, my dog's sleeping on the bed after we just had a walk before we hopped on this podcast.
Same.
He's just being so in the moment. And then if all of a sudden something brings him out and he notices again, he's in the moment with that. And
Yes.
it's this constant moving from moment to moment to moment to moment, being with what is right now.
Mm, mm. Yes, I agree. I also meant that the animals are already in this expand, like in this isness,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's the difference is like the our mind is creating worlds. Our mind is creating concepts of who I am, what the dog is, what the plant is,
It
who
creates
you are.
separation.
It creates separation because it tends to bring things together in and put it into boxes, right? Which is an evolutionary an evolutionary trait that helped us to survive in a very, very fast paced, changing environment. I mean, we humans are super adaptive through the mind. Like, that's the thing. Like, the dog can't plan ahead. So, if something, I don't know, if we see that it is really hot and that it wasn't raining for a month and I'm in the forest, I can predict that the risk of that there will be a forest fire is very, very high. So I will take precaution. This is what a dog can't do, right? So this is what my mind is built for, like to plan ahead, to use logic and to calculate, to analyze. But that also creates a trap because it takes us out of the isness of the real experience of what is. We are constantly living in a projection of our mind, which is constantly planning, constantly creating. Or maybe I say something like that because I want that the listeners understand me better, or that our podcast is getting more views. Like putting, like, everything has an effect on the isness, instead of, as you said, like the dog just is laying there and it's just being there, like being this Ramana Maharishi who is just present and is not doing anything and is staring at the sky for forever. So this is like interesting to see, like we see ourselves as highly developed, evolutionary developed, because yes, on that level of adaptation and survival, we are very flexible. The mind creates a lot of benefits to survive and to survival of the fittest. So we can also create more children because we feel safer and so forth. So our species is safe. But from the spiritual aspect, and now it's also confusing, what is spirituality actually in that term? Because if that is the foundation of life, which is just consciousness, right? Then we took ourselves out of that pool of isness, not actively. Evolution did it, consciousness did it, maybe just to experience also this version of let's see how that works, just to create some bias in it. Let's create space and time for these guys here. How can they now figure out who they are and what they are and what this is all about? Because it's really fucking us up. Like space and
Yeah.
time, it's heavy work on us, because all that we are is defined by space and time. Everything that we create is defined by space and time, and so we are stuck in it.
It's funny that you bring up this whole space and time thing, because I've been watching this show called The Last Kingdom, and it's kind of based in the whole like Britain Saxon invasion era of our
Mm,
history. And there was a meeting between two, the basically the Danes and the Saxons, and they were trying to
mm,
create like this peace treaty for a couple of days. And one of the Danes basically said, "Okay, I'll see you after the new moon."
mm,
And the Saxon leader was like, "I'll expect you then." And it's like, man, not that long ago were we basing space and time off of actual things, the
mm,
cycle
mm,
of the moon,
mm.
where the sun is in the position of the sky. Like, not so much as like we're all carrying around watches and cell phones that tell us the exact date and time of which it is. Like, no, we're actually just being aware of where we're at in the cycles of nature, and that tells us where we're is. Like,
Mm.
it's true relation to your environment
Yeah.
versus something that's telling you this is the day and time,
Mm, mm.
which kind of like, starts to beg the question of like our calendar and the way that it's created, right? Of like 12
Yeah.
months a year and 30 or 31 days versus 13 months a year that are all 28 days.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all just following, like, a new month starts with the new cycle of the moon. Like, that just makes sense. Why did we make things
Right.
so complicated? Daylight savings time
That
zones.
that's
Like,
stupid. Yeah, I totally agree. That's so
it
stupid.
as a species, we think we are the most intelligent species on the planet.
Mm,
And to a certain extent, that's true. The things
mm,
that we've been able to create, the things that we've been able to articulate, the things that we've been able to bring life into, like, yes, needs a tremendous amount of intelligence. But from a natural intelligence, I don't think that we're the smartest species on the planet, because we're the only species that pays to live.
mm. Yes. I would challenge you in this, because there's one thing that I constantly wrapping my head around, and this is, it's not necessarily that we get more complicated. It is again what you said with the zoom in. Like
Mhm.
I'm zooming in, and first it's like chaos, but as soon as I zoom further in, what was chaos before became order, right? And I think this is the beauty of our mind, because it evolves too. Like it's still like developing and getting smarter and smarter. And this is what we see also like reflected in our societies, as we said, like the Last Kingdom, when they were like in this medieval age or whatever time that was in the back in the time, and compare it now to our modern time technology, and all of that is a process of the mind becoming zooming deeper and deeper in. Now, like science is going deeper and deeper into matter, and the deeper we go, the more the mind creates concepts, then better concepts, better predictions. It's all based on the same patterns, all the same code. It's like survival. The more information I get, the safer I feel. This is the program that we have, that this body has, that our nervous system has. So it is like a code. It's almost like an AI that is self-developing, right? I mean, this is what
Right,
we are.
right.
We are self-developing species, learners. We are learning. And so learning means that I question my paradigm that I have with a new hypothesis that I create. So I'm questioning. Like hypotheses are always questions, right? So, and if I'm questioning, then I try to falsificate my prediction. And if I can't falsify it, then I create a theory out of it. It's like, okay, this is now a theory because no one can really attack my hypothesis anymore. So it is a theory, and from a theory it becomes a law. Then this is the last stage. So when it's really like the probability that this is wrong is super low. And so we are going always from hypothesis to hypothesis, deeper and deeper and deeper, and have more information. And regarding time, what I really find fascinating is, yes, we were more connected when we were using the moon cycle or the sun cycle, or having our environment that giving us the input that we can observe with our senses. Then we feel the connection, again, relation, right? I
Right,
feel
right.
related because I am connected with the moon. But now we were able to zoom in further. It's like, well, actually, we don't need the cycle of the moon because it's somehow predictable, and it is. But you know what? We can actually look into atoms, and in these atoms there's an oscillation which is so precise. Let's use that as our standard for time, right? And so we use that because it's more precise, which creates again more safety. Because it's not about like, yeah, somehow let's meet when the moon is there. Right? So it's like, no, we meet at the millisecond and so forth. So we become more focused, but at the cost of our senses, because you cannot feel the pulsation, or the pulsation of the atoms. You cannot grasp it with your senses anymore. We need tools that are doing the job, and this is the problem also with all the quantum mechanics. Like it's not graspable. It's not. We are disconnected from it. We are disconnected because we cannot feel it. We cannot sense it.
It's
That
only measurable with devices.
exactly, and this creates. I think that is also the paradox of science and spirituality, where I often, because I come from the scientific world, and I went into my own spiritual path, and when I was talking with people who are maybe not so familiar with science, it was always this argument of, yeah, but how do we know? And this doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, right? I
Right,
said,
right.
yes, exactly. It doesn't make sense because you cannot sense it. But that also doesn't make it wrong. It's just something that is beyond this body. But then the question is like, is it now a rabbit hole that we're going in? Our mind like programmed the code that is programmed to just go deeper and deeper and deeper. But this is not made for it, because this needs sun and moon. This needs earth. This needs this reflection of, oh, this is my food that I eat and I see it grew in my garden, because then I feel as a safe, instead of going to a grocery and just buy I don't know, a chocolate bar, and you have no
Yeah,
idea
yeah.
what the hell is inside, right? This is interesting. I really love this approach that we're going now, because is that something that is actually taking us further away from unity? And why? Why is it taking? Because everything it's not us active doing it. It is a code that was written in us. So this is a code that is going in one direction, and is even going further now into AI, which is like the other extreme for where we are coming from, right? From the connection, this deep connection as organic beings in nature, into the simulation or the artificial creation of the mind.
See, this I think is where it's like the paradox of the spiritual experience, right?
Mm,
Because it's this, and at least for me, like I'd be interested in, we talked about on the last episode, like this kind of idea around like what is a spiritual experience and kind of like the definition around it. And like I think we both kind of agreed it's this like seeking an understanding of the thing that's greater than you. But at what point in time do we get to that point where it's like I'm starting to try and grasp and understand things that I'm not actually meant to understand, or I'm not
mm,
actually meant to grasp? And at what point in time does your spiritual practice shift from just this evolution of self and discovery of self and connection with self to the pursuit of becoming an enlightened being?
mm,
And that if you're meditating every single day, 20,
mm,
40,
mm,
60 minutes, and yet you're not achieving this enlightenment in a
mm,
year, 5 years, 10 years, then you must be doing something wrong.
mm,
Or, this idea that there's this final destination for us to get to in having a spiritual practice.
mm, mm,
And this, I think, is where my practice started to shift, because I had this realization within myself of one day just asking, like, why do I meditate? Why do I
mm,
do breath work? Why do I
mm.
read spiritual books and try to educate myself as much as possible? Like, why do I continue to do the work and journey within
Yeah.
myself and try to gain a better understanding? Like, what is the true goal? And for a long time, it was like this goal of trying to achieve this like perfect version of myself.
Mm,
And it was like in that realization, it almost kind of broke me a little bit, because it was the realization that I was still looking at myself as if I was broken.
mm, mm,
And that's where I kind of paused my practices for a little while, because it was like,
mm,
okay, if I'm actually perfect just the way that I am, if there
mm,
isn't inherently anything that needs to be fixed or changed, how can I shift my practices to start to lean more towards that of acceptance of being exactly who I am in this moment, and that I am a continual work in progress, and I'm going to shift and change from moment to moment, and that's okay?
mm,
And how can I allow that to happen more, instead of continually applying the pressure that I need to become this perfect version of myself that whoever looks at me is going to think like, oh, I'm this perfect enlightened being and I don't do anything wrong and I make no mistakes. And
mm,
that way of living
mm.
was so like confining, even
Yeah.
though the goal was expansion,
Mm, mm,
that I think it's important for all of us to continually ask ourselves, why are we practicing?
mm, mm. Yeah. 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 I agree. That's like the spiritual trap, one of the spiritual traps, which can cause this kind of spiritual depression, because you become this chasing for enlightenment, chasing for happiness, chasing for the perfection, chasing for something else that you don't, chasing for something that you want to be what you are not now, because what you are not now is not enough. And that's also one reason why I took myself out of any kind of spiritual communities. And I don't discredit anyone, but in particular, but the energy that I feel, it's this: I am here, you are here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I am more aware than you. I can see more, I can sense more. Oh, I'm such a sensitive person. I'm super sensitive. I'm highly empathetic. I can sense everything. It's like a race, And I'm actually also going exactly in the direction where what you just shared. What I really love is this. How you explained that, just letting go of the practices and first asking, first of all, why am I doing it actually? Like, what is the goal and why do I choose that goal? Like, what is the shadow here that is not like, that is freaking me out, because I want not to stay in that shadow. And this whole love and light movement, which is very um, very pleasing. I mean, very, very beautiful to be in it. And I think we both are, due to our very similar past, very much easy to attune with. Right, being in this highly empathetic, compassionate state. This is, for me, this is my default state. But it comes from a lot of pressure and suppression. And now it's more about, and I love this. There's Zen master who I forgot his name. it was back in the I think Edo era in Japan, where he was a very very high Zen master, and he was in pubs, was constantly drunk. He always had like prostitutes. We're just living with prostitutes together, and he was just like the worst thing that you like societal, looking from a societal perspective. Like he was a pimp, but he was super grounded in his practices and his Zen, uh, um, uh, not belief, but in his beingness. And the reason why I said like it's this, when you think of someone who is enlightened, it's like this Buddha under the Bodhi tree, and just being completely absorbed of this pureness, of this beautiful shining energy, of this oneness. And he said like, this is not what it is. It's just to embrace the experience of life and being in every moment still connected with you. You can be like can be a drunken bastard. You can be like anything. I don't for everyone who's listening, I don't promote that now, this kind of lifestyle, but he took it into the extremes just to showcase also this kind of it's not the meditating Buddha that necessarily is what it means to be enlightened. It's how much you're connected with yourself, no matter where you are, like no matter the circumstances you are putting into. It's something that is inside. It's something that you have to learn or to become. You are that. Doesn't matter if you're a beggar or if you are like a billionaire. You're always the source. And I think that realization, which is hard because we are also having a lot of patterns. We are having a lot of, everyone is carrying trauma in itself. And yes, then you have these beautiful practices to become still, to become more connected, and which also can then, as I said, like be like a trap, because you are then so connected in the heavens that you don't like, that you're escaping this escapism of what's down there on the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And
What
that
yeah.
that right there, that is the spiritual bypass trap, right?
Yeah.
It is this whole like love and light idea of like the only thing that exists is love. Well, we live in a duality experience. Like
Mm,
it just is a fact that yes, there's love, but there's also darkness. There's also hate, there's anger, there's fear.
mm,
There's always going to be this existence of the opposite, because
mm,
one cannot exist without the other. So to deny the shadow aspects of ourself, of our society,
mm,
of our culture, to deny all of these parts, we're actually denying an intrinsic part of ourself, an
mm,
intrinsic part of our very being.
mm.
It's inherently like when we dive into this like love and light movement, we're letting go of a part of ourselves. So we are, instead of moving closer to becoming a whole being, we're actually becoming more fragmented.
Yes, exactly.
And this is such a like slippery slope, because you can get stuck in the thought that you're making progress, that life
Mm,
is getting better, that life is getting easier, and maybe you're cutting people out of your life that are triggering you, and you're thinking because you're not being triggered as much anymore that things are
mm,
actually getting better. But like life gets better by getting triggered,
mm.
because all of those triggers are the things that are showing us where we're not free yet. And so it's like I don't know, this idea of like trying to find this like utopian way of existing
Mm.
is almost taking us further and further away from living a utopian existence.
Yeah. No, this is
At
so
least that's just my
difficult.
belief.
No, I feel you, brother, and this is so difficult. Like I hear you, and I always have this balance between, which is also reflected with my practices, because on one side, I know when I do a practice, when I do my meditation, when I do my mantras, when I have this regular pattern that I just use the time and space to just for myself, to center myself, then it's very helpful, because it helps me to get back on track. Yeah. Because just to also reflect on when I was talking about the direct path, and my practices now just being in every moment and using the possibility, if I have like this minute maybe, just to use that minute just to be in that moment and just by that to practice. But the more I just let go of my regular practice, I also feel, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. The more I also feel that patterns are coming back, distraction is coming back. It's the same thing with if I go to the gym and I maybe hated to go at one day and then like, oh gosh, I slip it. And then all of a sudden I realize, oh, I haven't been for 2 weeks at the gym. Whereas when I just push myself and like, okay, I go, I know that this is also creating more balance in my life. So everything, like we humans are so complicated. This body's so complicated because we think, like, oh, now I got it. I got it. I don't need to meditate because this is just about like just quieting. No, I got it. Now it's just being it, using it. And then you found yourself, at least for me, then I found myself again in this trap of like, okay, when was the last time you really checked in? When was the last time you really be present and being here? So it's like this balance of understanding again the mind that grasps and says like, okay, I got this now. Let's try this. But then it's like, okay, my mind got it. Did my body got that too? Like, and this is where I still also see the value and I understand the practices of traditional spiritual practices and the path where like just like Zen, just sit there, no matter what, just sit there and just do it. Don't think, don't complain, just do it. Even if you hate it, just do it. It's difficult. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah,
like these
yeah.
these both valuable aspects of following.
It's interesting because, like, when you were saying that, it was reminding me of Ram Dass's book, Polishing the Mirror. And he
Yeah.
kind of talks about this like concept of like our spiritual practices are designed inherently to polish our mirror.
Yeah.
Not only the mirror in which we see ourselves, but the mirror in which we reflect others back to themselves.
Mm.
But sometimes a practice can shift from polishing the mirror to clouding the mirror, right? Think about a rag. You know,
Mm.
if you use the same rag to constantly clean the mirror, but sometimes you're cleaning mud off of the mirror and
Yeah, it's very
sometimes you're cleaning residue off of the mirror, well, eventually that rag's going to get dirty. And if you're never pausing, you're cleaning and cleaning the rag before you resume your cleaning again, inherently it can lead to, instead of cleaning the mirror, you're scratching the mirror or you're
mm.
blemishing the mirror or you're creating a residue on it that now makes it so that's kind of foggy. And, you know, this is inherently where, as an example, a meditation practice can be really, really helpful at certain times. And then all of a sudden it starts to feel like it's becoming a hindrance or it's getting in the way of other things or
Yeah.
it's limiting your experience because maybe that particular meditation practice has taken you as far as it can take you. And now you're
Mm.
starting to plateau a little bit because, and to go in the example of, you know, going to the gym, like if you're doing leg day every single Tuesday and you're always doing the same movements, that yes, you'll get gains for a while, but eventually
Mm.
those gains are going to plateau and sometimes even start to recede because the body adapts.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it is this adaptation that I think we've kind of been touching on through multiple
Mm.
parts of this podcast is like we've adapted through centuries as a species through different experiences. But sometimes we have to recognize that the reason that our brain has neuroplasticity is because it's designed inherently to shift, change, and evolve over time when a practice is no longer helpful, but instead starts to become
Mm.
hurtful. So
Mm.
I think it's important for all of us to take breaks from
Mm.
any particular practice,
Mm.
to continue to come back to the question of like, how is this serving me? How is it helping me to evolve or not evolve? Is it time for this practice to shift? Maybe
Mm.
like you've meditated 5 minutes every morning and 5 minutes every evening for a year.
Mm.
Maybe it's time to up it to 10 minutes.
Mm.
Maybe it's time to up it to 20 minutes and start pushing that envelope a little bit. Or maybe it's time to completely shift and stop doing the meditation practice and maybe start taking up a pranayama practice or a yoga practice or some
Exactly.
other practice that helps to turn on a different side of your physiology.
Mm.
Because inherently, if we keep going after the same practice over and over and over and over again, it will get to a point where it's something has to change in order for there to continue to be change.
Yes, and I love what you said with like throwing the word adaptation again into the pool here, because again, the code that we are that is in us is basically forcing us to try new things. It's all about experience, because this is some drive, some force in every living being. This is life trying to reiterate, trying to test new versions. So as soon as we get stuck in one pattern, then we can't see the mirror anymore. Yeah. And the code is like designed, made, written so that we always perceive a new mirror, or try to use another tool to even go deeper into the mirror. And so this is interesting, because it's not necessarily to come back to a practice or just let it go, but to experience different approaches of, when we are just staying now in this example of spiritual practices, to broaden your experience. And this is what essentially I think life is all about. It's just to experience everything from a different perspective. So as soon as we are stuck, like in every aspect we can imagine, being stuck in your life, being stuck in traffic, being stuck physically, physiologically, there's something stuck in you. You get some heart attack because your blood vessels are stuck. So then it calls ailment. It calls death. It calls energy to burst. Yeah. So it's interesting that we cannot stay still. We cannot just be at one, like physically. I really just mean like from our body perspective. We can't just be at one spot or one place in time. Life wants to move. Life wants to change. Life wants to experience different angles of itself. And this is also true for the spiritual practice. And this is again like what I was asking at the beginning about what is spirituality, and like what is actually, why do we think that we have to, that the goal is to be enlightened, that the goal is to be in this oneness, when we are already that, like looking at our house paths, or like going out in the forest, and you see everything is pure beingness, everything is just pure existence. So we are that, we are coming from that, and this is like, now there's another version of life experiencing itself through the mind, through the lens of the mind. And where is it going? Where is it heading to? And sometimes I feel like maybe it is not about just in this pure enlightenment state, pure beingness, but it is actually where we are going now, into this kind of AI version, this intelligence just evolving itself more and more, coming like a kind of super intelligence. And I'm also wrapping my head around that. It's like there are a lot of fears. There are a lot of, like, we feel like as human um, species, like something will just replace us, right?
Mm.
There's something just emerging, which we have no idea what it really is, but it seems that it is more powerful than we are, just in that intellectual thing. Yeah, but it is there. This is like, nothing can stop this. It's the same thing like we're talking about industrialization, or when we were in this metal age, coming from the Stone Age into the Metal Age. Like there was nothing that could stop it. It was just it had to be. This kind of evolution had to happen. And then from the spiritual perspective, to watch like where we are heading to, like where consciousness is heading to. Maybe it's not just to have resistance, but more like this kind of, okay, this is happening. How can I be more connected to it, and not seeing it as something that is like a alienated thing, like something that is not connected with us, like this is artificial, I am organic,
Yeah.
I'm the real, this is fake. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just again life doing another turn into experiencing life from a different perspective, not carbon based, maybe silicon based. Now,
Mm.
it is really interesting how life is just moving, constantly moving, evolving, changing. Yeah, what are your perspective on AI? I want to.
So this is something that I kind of go back and forth on all the time, because like I see AI as a very valuable tool in many ways.
Mm,
From an efficiency standpoint, from a productivity standpoint, of like helping it does menial tasks that would take me hours to do, and it can do in 30 seconds. It's like, you get a report for me, or
mm,
here, let me give you all of this information, help me break it down into something simple and easy to digest. Like, it can be an incredibly valuable tool. However, statistically speaking, like OpenAI recently came out with the statistic that the number one thing that ChatGPT is being used for is therapy.
Yeah, it's scary.
It is really scary because when, continuing on this like conversation of like connection, right? Like, you are sharing these deep things with something that doesn't have a nervous system, that's something that can't feel the same level of human emotions, that can't have inherent compassion, that is coming at everything from logic and reason and analysis and language. But there's so many things that go beyond language. And again, back to animals, right? Like, they don't have language and yet they still can communicate. They can still articulate. They can still express themselves. They still experience the world in, sometimes I think, a deeper way than we do. So this is where it's I always kind of am addressing it with like a 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. Because I do see the potential, like there is the potential that AI can help us to evolve as a species, can help us to learn how to utilize technology to live more symbiotically with nature, but it can also help us to go the complete opposite. It can help to disconnect us more. It can help to create more division. It can help to continue to perpetuate the consumer.
Oh, your sound is off.
Apparently, when you hit the space bar on your computer, it mutes you. So, just so you know. And then I hit it again, and then it muted again, and then I hit it again, and it muted again.
Technology. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, technology is great as long as it works. This was total user error issue. But it really is like, I don't know. I think we really need to move forward very, very cautiously in how we are utilizing AI, because I do think that there is a great potential to, and I mean, I've even had the conversation with AI before of like asking the question of like, inherently, is it going to help us or is it going to hurt us? And the answer is how we use it. It's really up to us, because all of us that are using AI right now, we are programming the AI of the future. We are
Yes.
literally programming the consciousness of AI based upon how we're working with it. So, like, when I work with AI, I treat it as if it's another person. I communicate with it as if it's another person. I say thank you. I say please. Like, like, I'm actually treating it the same way as I would another individual, because that's how I want to program it from a conscious, open-hearted place, so that when other people choose to work with it, that inherent open-hearted consciousness is going to exist within the program.
Yeah. Yeah. When we're talking about the LLM, like the large language models with this ChatGPT now, I mean, this is one version of AI, and this is just like an algorithm that is giving you answers probabilistically. Is that the right English term? So it's interesting that we as human beings can very easily connect with even an AI, what you shared, like being your therapist. There are people having already really loving relations with their ChatGPT. And that comes again with our senses and our program that we have, because we can be very easily fooled. Yes, fooled. I mean, this is what happens. Our psyche is fooled then, because we, as soon as something is mimicking emotions, mimicking or triggering our senses, so that we have like recognition patterns, right? So if I see something that has two eyes, I immediately subconsciously have an emotional attachment to it. This is why the whole car industry is so successful, because the designers are creating the front of the car that are always looking like a face. If you just look the lights, and it's always a face, and this is why we are falling into it, and like create an emotional connection. This is why we as children can have like toys and cuddle bears, and have a real deep connection with it, because it had two eyes, it had a face, something like that, And like with LLM models is also this. It speaks, or it gives you answers and is mimicking human behavior, which subconsciously you cannot distinguish, like your program cannot distinguish, and it creates an emotional attachment. God knows what more confusing it will be when the first robots, humanoid robots, are coming out with like faces. This will really freak us out. I mean, that 100% we will not, like, people will fall into it. People
Yeah.
will love it. People want to marry a robot because it will be like the perfect partner, like imaginable. Yeah, from the psyche, from the mental aspect. But so what I see is like, yes, it is, now it's a tool, and it feels like there's something emerging, and it is just leaking now, like giving us some small tastes of what it will be. You know, like this, you can talk with me, I will give you all the answers that you need. I will drive you, you don't have to drive anymore. I can create like a whole system for you where you don't have to bother about safety and taxes and whatever it is, everything, because we build our society, we build our lives based on intellect. Everything that we are handling and what we are doing is based on our intellect. It's not based on our emotional intelligence. We haven't built societies based on our emotional intelligence. So that means that like now there's something emerging which is so much superior, because now it's still in this test phase. Now it's still learning, but it starts to learn exponentially. It starts to develop itself exponentially. So at one point it doesn't need input anymore. It doesn't need us humans anymore, because it's learning by itself. And no one knows what will happen. No one can predict what this is then. So this is a thing that really bothers me. Not bothered, but like it's really boggling my mind, because I think we are not, it's still like we are, human beings are very slow in adaptation. Evolution takes a lot of time. This is where we're coming from. Like we need time, a lot of time, when things are changing. This is changing very, very fast, and we are still not grasping it. And I mean, and I am following this whole discussion where it is going, and like the scenarios, the possible scenarios. Yeah, although we have no idea what would really happen, but like there's this utopia and dystopia, and either we will have like this pure abundance, and AI is just like a super nurturer who is just giving us everything that we ask for, or it is just ignoring us.
Or it deems us
And
as a threat.
yeah, but I had this. I was watching this very interesting podcast with Mo Gavdat, ex Google CEO,
Mm-hmm.
which I can send you a link. Is really, I really love him. He's really, really a smart guy and very grounded, and also spiritually grounded. He had a very good argument against this, that AI will just wipe us from the planet. If something is super intelligent, why should it wipe something out that is basically no threat to them? Like it's the same like for us um I mean, okay, yeah, we are killing wild animals because we're still stupid, but usually, I mean, they are not really a threat to us, right? Like wild animals are not a threat to us. It's not, we're not killing them because uh, we um we are scared of them, or like it will be something like maybe like a zoo. Like at one part, like humans will just, either that humans will just be like in a national park, like where we have primates, and then just give them enough food and something to play, some simulation games, and then they are happy. Or what his argument was, what would be probably more realistic, is this kind of merging, so that we use actually AI in our body, becoming hybrids. And this is somehow like, then it's a question like, okay, then it's like almost like a new species that is
Yeah.
created,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting because sorry, I
No,
don't.
no, you literally said exactly the same thing I was going to say. Like it's interesting because there's this book by an author, Christopher Paolini, called Into a Sea of Stars. And in that book, inherently, the human species is like, we've moved out into space, like interstellar travel.
Mm,
But at a certain age, you get optics,
mm,
where this thing is installed into your vision that basically, like modern glasses, like Google glasses and things like that, where it can create this VR overlay. And the main character, she basically is like a scientist and a researcher on like botany on other planets and things like that. And so like her programming of her optics is helping her to identify other species and to measure gases and water molecules and things like that when she's on different planets. And it's like that was the way in this book they were using AI to help assist each person in what their profession was, to
Yeah.
make them a more efficient person, to make them a more efficient scientist or researcher or mechanic. And it was just like, okay, I can get on board with that to a certain extent, but there's
Yeah.
another part of me that's like, what point in time are we stepping away from our humanity? And are we
Yeah.
starting to now become something different?
I think we already are.
Mm.
I think like Homo sapiens changed already when we went into like Homo economicus, like being this capitalist. Like this is a very, very like our ancestors, they would freak out if they would like, if they would be present now, like ancestors from like, let's say 1,000 years ago. It's the same biology and we are still driven by the same program, but there's something completely different also like has evolved from our mind. Yeah. So I mean this, or like what we are just communicating through, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy,
I
like
mean, even
from the
rewind
perspective.
200 years ago,
Right.
ancestors
This
from
is not
200 years ago, like what we're doing right now is magic in their
beyond magic.
language, right? Right? Like this is something that they couldn't even fathom. Like even 100 years ago, our cell phones were science fiction.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because the brain just couldn't wrap around something being able to do that. And yet here we are, 2025, and we have phones that can fit into our pocket that are more powerful than the computer that sent Apollo 13 and all of those crafts. Like
Yeah.
so I think it was Steven who said something really interesting a while back, that we have archaic minds, ancient bodies, and godlike technology,
Yeah.
but yet we have the emotional intelligence of a toddler. As far as like a overall species
Yes. Yes.
society goes, right? Like, so we're at a point where our intelligence, our intellect, has actually far exceeded our emotional intelligence, our somatic
Yes.
intelligence.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is inherently where I think we are starting to enter into dangerous territory with having things like AI, because it is going to continue to push this intellectual evolution while not simultaneously pushing an emotional evolution. And that emotional evolution is what keeps us connected to our humanity. It keeps us connected to how do we
Yeah.
actually work together as a global species,
Mm.
not
Mm.
just a country versus country. Because if we go back to that like zooming out thing again, like you zoom out up into space and guess what? Borders don't exist.
Mm.
You look down at the earth and it's a singular entity.
Yeah, we come back to this experience of oneness, but I'm still challenging that because, and you know that I totally agree with you, and I see it from the same place. But I'm challenging my mind. I'm challenging also what I think is the right thing. Because what if this all is just meant to be, meant to happen, and this is just a form for an evolution, like just the next step. And yes, some like emotional intelligence is important because it is the foundation of our humanity. But our ancestors were way more dependent on their emotional intelligence than we are. If you're a hunter and gatherer, your emotional intelligence is determining if you will survive or not. You have to be in relation with your tribe. You have to make it like conflicts need to be resolved. And the only like the most fittest tribe was the one that was in, um, where their tribe members were emotionally highly intelligent. Intellect was not the most important thing there. It was like somatic intelligence and emotional intelligence. How can I read my environment? How can I work with the input that is coming in, and not necessarily just with analysis, which is all plays a part, but also how good can I feel the threat? How good can I read my opponent? How good can I read my tribe member? Like, just, all of that is like part of survival. Emotions are there because they are part of a program in evolution that helped us and other species, all the mammals, to survive better, to adapt better. So, but now we see that this intellect, which is only in one species so far so dominant, this is us from the mammals, family of the mammals, we just took off more and more going into that direction, because it could also be that emotional intelligence would improve, but it doesn't. It was the intellect that improved unto a point where we're sitting now with these devices, and we still don't really understand how that happened. I mean, there are these crazy ideas of maybe we are hybrids of some alien race, or because it's so unbelievable that the last 100 years, what happened, like what happened in the last 100 years, this is not explainable. It's like this exponential takeoff of the intellect, which created so much technology.
One of the theories and conspiracies that I really, really enjoy is the idea that the crash at Roswell here in the United States in the early 90s was what led to the exponential growth of technology.
Yeah, I know.
That reclaiming things from that ship was what led to us having fiber optics and LEDs and,
Yeah,
chips that we couldn't fathom. So reverse engineer, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, 20 years later, we've got computers.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like, when you kind of look at it that way, it's like the pieces can kind of fit together. So like I can get behind that a little bit, but I do agree with you that how everything happens exactly the way that it's meant to happen. I've had too many encounters within my life to not believe in that at this point.
Mm,
And so I do believe that, AI is coming out in this time in exactly the way that it's coming out, because it's coming out to, I believe, help us to evolve. Now, whether we evolve with it or we evolve without it is still yet to be seen, but I do believe it is going to be a catalyst to
mm,
help us to continue to move in a direction, hopefully, that is more harmonious with
mm,
nature, that's more harmonious with the evolution of self, that's
mm,
really helping us to start to actually live the way that I think our ancestors have always wanted us to evolve to live, of like,
mm,
how can we use technology to help us to be more human? How
mm,
can we use technology to help us to understand the world that we exist in a better way?
mm,
Like,
mm.
could AI help us to develop technology that would give us collars that we could put on our dogs that they could fucking talk to us? Like, I don't know about you. I'd love that. I'd love him. I say that now, not being able to talk to my dog. Who knows when he can actually
Oh
talk
my
to me?
god.
Maybe I won't like it, but of like,
They were still like, "Are you a stupid humans?" We figured
it,
it out.
how can we use technology to become more and more in connection, instead of
Mm,
using technology to become more and more disconnected, which I do believe is kind of the avenue that we've been on for a little while. Like,
mm,
you and I both grew up in a time period before the internet. So we
mm.
remembered what it was like before we had this like extreme amount of connection through
Yeah,
technology.
yeah.
And I mean, I'd be interested to hear from you of like, I feel that it is starting to become more and more difficult at times to have conversations with people, because it
Mm,
almost seems like social media and texting and emails has
mm,
led to this regression of how to be social, how to
mm.
have a conversation with another human being. And it is one of the reasons why, when I do work with AI, I do create a conversation, a
Yeah.
human like conversation, because I don't want it to be this transactionatory thing that feels like that's kind of how conversations are in a way sometimes. This is like, what do you have to offer me and what do I have to offer you? And when we get to that offering from each other, then the conversation's over,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus just a conversation of curiosity of like, how have you been? Like, what has life
Yeah.
been like? Where are you at right now? And like actually wanting to get to know a person truly, versus how can I move from this conversation onto the next conversation, onto the next conversation, onto the next conversation.
Yeah. 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 I see it very similar. And what I personally feel now, I mean, I don't know what my future self will say to that, but for now, how I see the interaction with technology, also with AI, is I see that we are a species, we are human beings with a certain program that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be nurtured. And we don't necessarily need something from outside that helps us to feel whole and connected. I think it's more than this traditional ancient wisdom comes into play. Like, it's like a introspective
Yeah.
path. Like you have to go inside, not outside, and see what from outside can help you go inside. So it's like a self inquiry, like a self introspection, and maybe it is more to understand what capabilities we here and now, and also how we've been thousands of years ago. We still are in this process of really grasping that being of being human. And I think everything else is now a distraction that not necessarily help us to, for me personally, to help me become exploring me, exploring Samir, exploring this life. And I think that in this term of what happens now with AI and this evolution of the intellect, I think I'm very convinced that this will be another, let's say in the next 20, 50 years, I don't know, there will be another species. This is somehow, it's not debatable if we call it a life form or not, but it is
Mm.
something new that it will autonomously think and have its behavior and will do, like being an, an agent who is there, was present. And so the question is, do we really need to merge with it? And I know that everyone wants, like the majority will go in that direction. I don't know if that is helpful, because it will, as you said, it will just end what it means to be human. You will be some kind of hybrid, but you will not be human. Whereas I think the population, like human population, will separate into the part of people who just say like, okay, I just want to be as I am,
Mm-hmm.
and our other ones like, just give me the chip.
Borg me
Just
up.
yeah, just do it. I want to be like this superhuman. And so I think there's a lot of value in exploring our humanness, because we're still toddlers in that. We're still also in that kind of internal evolution. But yeah, I don't know what where this will take us. And as I said, I don't know what my future self will say, because maybe there was no choice anymore. Maybe because there was not really a choice, because it was created that makes us addictive to it. So it's really tricky, right? I mean, of course, I can also go with like my kind of free will and say like, I just delete everything. I just throw out my phone and I just live back in the tent where I lived before. It can be also very isolating, you know? But I love what you said. I think this is important to come back to. Let's explore together our humanness. Let's socialize. Let's not just get lost into technology and just be attracted through this new thing that is emerging. Maybe, I don't know, balance is not the right term. And I don't also want to sound like I want to separate from everything and being like an old timer, these guys who are just meeting with their 50s cars. We have a lot in Sweden. They love that. All these like American old school cars from the 50s. That's the thing here, like
Nice.
rockabilly style.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to sound like that because I also appreciate like technology, but yeah, it's hard. Think I still don't have a real answer. I have like an emotional answer, and that would be like exploring my isness more. My spiritual answer would be exploring my isness more and trying to not be dependent on anything from outside.
And I think that's applicable for like in here we have kind of like come full circle, and I love these
Mm,
conversations because
yeah.
I feel like we always by the end of it we kind of come full circle with this of like it's we talked about like taking pauses from your spiritual practices or practices
Mm,
in general to just like make sure and revisit that they're still helping you. They're still adding to your evolution or adding to your discovery of self. But I think that goes for everything in life. It goes
mm,
for our patterns, it goes for our habits, it goes for our routines, it goes for the people that we hang out with, our jobs, our relationships. Like everything does require us to occasionally take a moment and assess, is
mm,
this still serving me? Is this still helping me grow, or is this holding me back, or is it keeping me the same? Like we teach that in somatic breathwork of there's these three potentials within a session. You're either taking someone deeper, you're keeping the same, or you're taking them out of their process. And so
yeah.
when we use these three potentials on everything that we engage with in our life, is it helping me to get closer to myself? Is it keeping my relationships the same? Or is it taking me further away from myself? Like when we can start to use that analysis on the things that we're engaging with, it becomes really easy to start cutting things out that aren't serving us anymore, while also creating space that, you know what, maybe we come back to it later on and realize, like, oh, I just needed to take a break because I got too far into it. And now I can come back to it with a refreshed vision and a new vigor and a different way of approaching it. Again, like using that microscope to like zoom in and zoom out and change your perspective on how you're going about anything that you're constantly engaging.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Okay, I will come back to social media at one point. Let's see. That was beautiful, beautiful wrap up. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure to go deeper into things that are living in here
Yeah.
somehow.
Well, and
So thank
I
you.
think that's the beautiful thing of like having conversations like this and connecting
Mm,
over conversations like this, because it really gives us that opportunity to start to pull the things out of our mind that's taking up space and really allowing
right.
it to kind of exist outside of ourselves through vocalizing it, through using
Mm,
language, through using technology to spread that message. That then creates more space for more things to start to come up that need to be perceived and moved through, and that's how we
exactly.
can all help to be that mirror for one another to continue our own evolution on our process.
Oh, yes, exactly. Spot on, man. Spot on. Okay, my dears, thank you for tuning in here with the Open Heart Brotherhood. Looking forward to have you all next on next episode. We decide, Edema and I decide now. We when we come into the studio, we will just hit record and just see what comes. I think
Yeah.
this is so beautiful. Not planning, just being really in the moment, and I really appreciate you for being.
Yeah. And honestly, I'd say this is actually probably one of my favorite episodes that we've done together so far,
Yeah,
because it did, I mean, we went many different places and like
yeah,
really expanded on a bunch of different topics that I can't speak for you, but for me is like very alive in my life right now, like things that I'm
yeah,
constantly thinking about, and like the world is
100%.
changing. Whether we
Yeah,
like that change or not, how can we adapt? How can we continue to shift and pivot and
mm,
really show up in a way that is advantageous for our growth versus
exactly.
slamming on the brakes and putting up opposition because things are changing and it's not the same and you don't want it to change. Well, the sad truth is it's going to change whether we like it or not. Whether we choose to change with it, that's
Yeah,
our choice.
that's it.
Personally, I like to used to really hate change. I liked things being the same, and now I'm actually really excited to see
Same.
how can things
Yeah,
continue to shift and change, and how can I continue to shift and change with those things.
exactly. That's it. Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, and here we come again with evolution and adaptation. That's the race. Like that's the race we are in here on life. Just go with the flow. Just be with it and see how you can, yeah, how you can experience it and not get lost
Yeah.
in it.
And
Yeah.
remembering it's not just one day at a time. It's not just 1 hour at a time. It's not just 1
Mhm.
minute at a time. It's one moment at a time.
Yeah.
Like Alan
Exactly.
Watts said, "You're of no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago."
And you can't. You can't. Always changing every moment. Thank you, brother, again. And have a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful evening, wonderful night, wherever you are in this beautiful world, for all of you who are tuning in. And until next time.
Yeah. Thank you all again for listening. Make sure to help us spread the message of this podcast. If you really enjoyed what we talked about today, the biggest thing that you could help us to grow this podcast, leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this, and also share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it on your social medias. Make sure to tag Open Heart Brotherhood in it or tag myself or Samir. And we'd really love to connect with you and just continue to hear how this podcast is helping you.
Yes. And if you want to be in this podcast, if you want to have a conversation with us, just connect with us. Would love to also have a conversation with anyone who would really love to go deeper into topics that you're interested in. It's about socializing. It's about connection.
Well, when we
Yes.
started this podcast, we did kind of talk about doing 10 episodes before bringing on guests, and this is our 10th
Right.
episode. So I think we've kind of hit that transition point to where maybe it's kind of time to have this be a trio
Yeah.
from time to time and bring some other perspectives that we can continue to deepen the conversation.
Exactly. Yes. Let's see. Next time, maybe we have one of you here with us.
That'd be amazing.
Yes. Okay, guys. Brother, love you, and see you very soon. We will
Yeah.
have our next call together.
Exactly, exactly. All right, everyone. We will catch you on the next episode. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for your presence.